business morning on Sunrise Daily. We do business for just about 30 minutes and head back to the Sunrise Daily studios. We start from the global space where oil prices on Monday wiped out nearly all of the gains that it made last week after data showed China's inflation rate declined and a lack of clarity on the country's economic stimulus plans stoked fears about fuel demand in the world's biggest crude importer. Remember, we did talk about that big press conference that was held on Saturday that was supposed to give direction and details of the stimulus plan which China had shared, which moved the market about 2 weeks ago. Well, it seemed it wasn't so clear in spite of that, and so we see the market is reacting, and China is a major mover of the market this morning. So we'll keep our eyes on the numbers now. We see it's $77.80 a barrel for Brent after it was down 1.56%. That's a huge move. China is really a major mover of the oil market. WTI also down 1.6% at $74.34 a barrel. Both benchmarks gave up their gains from last week, falling by more than 1.5% on the average before recovering some grounds. Brent gained 99 cents last week, while WTI climbed $1.18. And China's deflationary pressures worsened in September. The consumer price index missed expectations, and the producer price index fell at the fastest pace in 6 months, down 2.8% year on year. This number is according to China's National Bureau of Statistics. Now, still talking about oil now, the Dangote Group, owners of Dangote Refinery, say they will commence oil exploration in the first quarter of next year, 2025. And this, they say, will bolster feedstock to their refinery. Of course, we know that crude has been a major conversation around Dangote Refinery in the last couple of weeks. According to reports by S&P Global and also confirmed by personnel in Dangote, the Dangote Group is looking to start production at its 2 Nigerian oil assets, which includes its 2 Niger Delta upstream projects and oil mining leases 71 and 72, starting with about 20,000 barrels per day before they ramp it up further. The report notes that Dangote's upstream activities are seldom discussed, and the imminent startup of production at the OMLS 71 and 72 suggests that Dangote Refinery could soon supplement its crude feeds after battling crude supply issues for months. Now, let's look at the naira. Unfortunately, last week, according to FMDQ on their platform, the naira depreciated, lost 1.73% at the end of last week. So we see for Friday, this is for Friday, and that loss is for the whole of last week, a summary of it. We see on NFM there was a drop of 1.14%, closed at 1,641 naira 27. But that's the opening of today. While for NAFEX, it was an appreciation there, 0.5% at 1,631.4. So we've seen for most of last week and the upper week, the naira has been in the range of 1,600 right there. We hope it doesn't hit 1.7. Driving towards that looks aggressive. Perhaps we'll have intervention from the central bank before the close or by the close of today, as we have noticed that they do. Remember that, economists are still asking for a more predictable intervention from the CBN. The bank and investors should know when to expect intervention from the CBN, and that may bring another kind of stability and certainty to the value of the naira. But we haven't gotten a response from the CBN on that yet. Now, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria Export Promotion Group, one of the special purpose groups of the association with the responsibility to promote industrial climate for building the economic activities and implementation of incentives for non-oil exports, as well as creation of more incentives to attract more manufacturers. They have met and they have some suggestions. While they appreciate the policies which has been formulated by the government, they say implementation of those policies seems to be lacking.
We may all be aware that there are several export incentives introduced by the federal government, and that only a few of them are being effectively pursued. In addition, we often experience counter-policy regulations and actions from some other ministry, departments, and agencies of government that are inimical to the export business growth in Nigeria. You can, in one breath, say you are promoting exports, and some of your ministry, departments, and agencies are directly, by their action and inaction, promoting the non-performance of exporting companies. So there's need for us to focus on those things that will allow us to move in the same direction, promote export, particularly now that we have the AFCFTA, which guarantees access to more than 53 other markets. If we say we cannot compete with Europe, Asia, and America, it will be unacceptable for us not to be able to compete within the continent.
Yeah, so let's settle on that a bit. And we have an individual who was at that meeting right here in the studio. He is the Executive Secretary of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria Export Promotion Group. Dr. Benedict Obosa is right here in the studio. Dr. Obosa, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us there. So we had your DG there talking at the meeting that you had last week, telling us that while there are incentives to promote non-oil exports, it does seem that implementation of those incentives have not been seen. Implementation hasn't been seen. And you are Executive Secretary to Manning, which is the body that's responsible, that's supposed to coordinate or collaborate with government on these policies. Tell us how much you have done, how much you think you have gained, and what else you need to do to promote non-oil exports, to create those incentives for non-oil exports in the country.
Thank you very much, Ini, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. As a matter of fact, like the DG said during our AGM, a lot needs to still be done by the federal government. Of course, they have some incentives that are paying to exporters, but as it is, the impact of these incentives tends to be lower because of other indicators that is affecting the manufacturing sector, especially the manufacturing exporters, in terms of high cost of production, infrastructural deficiency, insecurity, exchange rates, the growing and increasing depreciation of the naira. We saw these are also things that are affecting the manufacturers. Some kind of eroding the impact of the incentive that manufacturers are getting. Recently, you see what happened even during the MPC of September. You see now that the MPRO is now 27.5%. And by the time it dictate to transcend to the deposit money banks and other financial institutions, it could go as far as 30 to 35 or 33%.
Is there a way to create a buffer, which is the incentive we're talking about? Is there a way to create buffer for manufacturers at a time like this?
Yes. There's many things that government can do to do that. For example, let there be a different exchange rate for manufacturers. Let it be lower.
Who will pay for the difference? We're going to the way of subsidy again. We're fighting subsidy on PMS. Because if you say that, somebody has to bear the costs.
Okay. This is what is traditional globally. I can give you an example of Vietnam. I can give you an example of Australia. I can give you an example of China, India. I can give you an example of another island republic. I can even give you an example of our backyard here in South Africa. In South Africa, for example, local government, state government pays incentives. So there are different kind of incentives that government can put through for them to swing into action and bring about the requisite development. As a matter of fact, whatever we are passing through today, the economic hardship, it is because the manufacturers are not on a good state as they're supposed to be. It is the absence of that, the presence of that, the prevalence of that is causing this economic hardship, coupled with the government policies affecting manufacturers. So what they really need to do is to, inject in some policies, incentive. I just gave an example of exchange rate. They can do the one of lending rate. in lending rate. In Colombia, in fact, incentives date back to like 1959. In Colombia, for example, when they wanted to support manufacturing sector, if you are importing anything that is an input to manufacturing, what they do is that they do it duty-free. So if it's now also, if it's for fish sector for manufacturing, now if it's now for export, they also lower it. So they expanded like that, started growing like that. Even from the mid-60s in Colombia, they started doing that. So in South Africa, they do similar. Even supporting their entertainment, like our own Nollywood, they support it. If you go to what do you call this country, Vietnam. Vietnam goes as far as supporting those who want to build schools and recreation centers. I mean, centers that where they can support people learning technical skills and things like that. Apart from the manufacturing, most of these countries have gone beyond, just exchange rates. So the lending rates goes down. They do a lot of waivers that helps the manufacturer to be competitive. There is ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme as ETLS for members manufacturing in Nigeria or ECOWAS that can export to any other ECOWAS country without paying duty. But when you manufacture under a very intense and high cost of production, even when you get to Ghana, you are not competitive. So governments can lower the cost of production. It can give you more incentives like lowering cost of production, exchange rate that I mentioned, cost of borrowing. Cost of borrowing today that I mentioned, they can lower that and it will help them a great deal. And they can also go as far as cost of energy. Energy is very, very wonderful today, you know that. It's wonderful today when you come to how much they are paying to produce. So that's why even some of the products that we are having in the market, they are reducing in size and we are still paying more. And as the naira is depreciating, the dollar is going more. You buy ordinarily in economics. If the local currency is lower, it's devalued. When you export, you make more money. But it's not applicable now because as the dollar is going and we are importing more things abroad. If both of those things were being sourced locally, the raw material has been sourced locally, the machinery, the spare parts have been sourced locally, beautiful. But now it's not the case. So it's not benefit the devaluation of the naira or the high exchange rate as against the naira, it's not beneficial to the manufacturer.
All right, these ideas, mostly they are not new. And have you had, your group is supposed to champion that, talk to NEPC and different government agencies on how to actually implement these intensive. How far have you gone with that?
Okay, it's a daytime job. So this we have been doing. Recently, I was in a meeting organized by Nigeria Export Promotion Council called Energize Export 3.0 series. So, and I was telling the council, thank God that the Palm Secretary and Investment was also seated, Ambassador Nura. I was telling the council and the whole world, because it was a live program and on live stream from NEPC, I was telling them about this. Even in January, I represented the DG of MAN, the retreat of NEPC in Badagry, and I was also talking to them about incentives. We do this every day. We go
What's
to
their response? What's the response?
They are working on the one that is within their purview, which is the export expansion grant.
I learned that's the only surviving incentive at this time.
Yes, but the payment is always very late. So before it comes, exporters have suffered so many things. All
right. Well, we'll stay on it, stay on the matter, and hopefully that will, push some things faster than they are. But thank you so much, Dr. Benedict Obosa, the Executive Secretary, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria Export Promotion Group.
It's a pleasure for having me. Thank you very much.
For your time. Thank you. So other than just creating those products and services, customer relation, customer experience is also an important one, and that's from the crux of the meeting in Lagos. A group of individuals made up of heads of customer service departments of various organizations, producers of products and services, and even customers are here to emphasize the need to pay attention to customer experience as a way to retain patronage and generally keep demand on Nigerian products and services.
If, say for instance, I had a bad quality product, I may have the most amazing customer service or customer attendant. I may give you a chance. I would give you feedback. It's an opportunity for you to refine your product. But if consistently we're still getting bad quality products, my money is more valuable. I would move. What does that mean? I would move. I'll tell my friends. I'll tell my family.
Needless to say, without customers, there will be no business. However, there are other benefits to businesses.
There is an important cost savings when it comes to delivering customer service that is excellent in nature. You save significant amount of money marketing. You save significant amount of money forcing your customers to use your product, because by nature, they organically use the product based on the experience that they use, based on the experience that they have. So for us, there is a strong need for businesses to understand that the gap that exists between the product that any company offers and the experience that the customer feels when they use the product, that gap needs to be closed such that the customers see the product as the experience. There is no difference between the product and the experience. They have to be the same. And that is when customer experience becomes an engine of growth for the company.
Customer satisfaction is an integral part of any organization and should not be treated lightly. The message at this meeting. Yeah, customer service and the real sector there in focus. Now let's move back to the oil and gas sector. First of all, Channels Television commiserates with the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mr. Kyari, on the loss of his daughter, who passed away on Friday. May her soul rest in perfect peace. And in spite of this, we see Mr. Kyari has been speaking to the issue of subsidy on PMS. That's the latest issue from the oil and gas in Nigeria. The need for a fully deregulated oil and gas sector in Nigeria. He was speaking to a group of journalists in Abuja.
In the last 40-something years, PMS has always been subsidized. And subsidy is creating arbitrage. That means there's a difference between price in one location lower than what it should be with another location. The evacuation from the table averaged 51 in recent times. And when Mr. President announced the removal of subsidy in June, what it did is calibrated price. It came to market. There's no longer any value in anyone taking the product across the border. If you do, you're not going to make those profits that you do. I'll give you an example. If the delta is significant, like if you are selling twice the price across in a 6,000 liter truck, you can actually gain up to 70 million naira from just one truck. So how are you going to stop someone who can just with 2 trips across the border will make 17 times 2, which is the price of the truck itself? So if you don't arrest it, then it's over. He has made his money. Versus when you take a truck legally, you take it to maybe 8 million naira, for instance, to Maiduguri, the legitimate value you have is less than 500,000 naira. So why would I see 70 million naira and then take all the trouble, go to Maiduguri, keep it in the fuel station for 1 month, and just make 300,000 to 400,000 naira? The challenge you have in all these countries, you have taxation on PMS. We don't have tax here. So in many of these countries, actually government revenue is dependent on the taxes that is coming on PMS. So you will see that until you balance for that, you recover your market costs and add taxation on it, there is no way you will ever get to a situation where there is some kind of market parity between us and our neighbors. But you will not be losing money. As long as you are not in a subsidy regime, you won't lose money. The key challenge of security and what really means, when we started this process of intervention in 2022, we deactivated 8,384 illegal refineries. They are not refineries really, boiling pots, we don't know what name to call them, but the people call it a refinery. So maybe we borrow their own words. We deactivated 8,000. I'll show you what this means. I'm sure you are seeing it in the media and all this thing. Then you have illegal connections to the pipelines. 6,610 illegal connections to the pipeline. We have removed about 5,913. That means still you have over 1,000 that has not been removed. And they are there. And they connect every day as we remove. Yes, we have reduced the scale. Maybe they used to do 10, maybe they are only doing 1. That's why we're seeing the progress that we're seeing. In localities that we know all these locations, you just take a helicopter flight, you'll see this happening in real time. And then just imagine you are having 4,300 wooden boats in this environment. Pits, 20,941 recorded pits, dotted all over our production environment. And what does this mean? Now, the issue of the communities now. When you have this, you're not going to have clean groundwater. Even when you drill shallow boreholes, you're going to find oil in the water. And of course, the degradation of the environment, the rivers, and everything that you can imagine has actually decimated livelihood of these communities. For the benefit of just very few people, maybe this 20,000, I'm sure, I don't know if you know, is actually now groups on it. They call it JV now. 10 people own one, 30 people own that. They call it joint venture now. For doing nothing, you take $80 crude and sell it for $40 for free. It's nothing. At a point, you may not be aware that imports of AGO in the country was almost nil, and there's no scarcity of AGO in the country. Yes, they're all refined, actually boiling, and at a point, everywhere you go is the same AGO that is coming from these creeks that we are using all over the country. So this is how far we have gone, and what is important is when you look at the chart in the middle, you'll see the decline. Our own projection now, and by August, that's the renewed intervention by the government security agencies are now brought out. The number of reported illegal connections and the refinery is going to, we think if we maintain this to the end of the year, we'll be stable. But I'm also aware that there are a number of new steps that government is taking today that will probably decimate this, not entirely, but surely it will be better than where we are today. Is there a drive towards that? The answer is yes. Today, Mr. President has taken several bold steps towards making sure that the security interventions are clearly decimated. 2 fronts, and I don't want to speak too much about it because I don't want to discuss the security, what the actual interventions are, but the reality is that certain critical steps have been taken by government, and that's why we're seeing these results coming on. So at the end, what does it matter is for you to make sure that when you produce it, it gets to the terminal, and then you evacuate it. And that intervention holds only one part of it. That's the physical part of it. The other part of it is the community part of it. As you all know, there are several attempts at ensuring inclusivity in our environment. The only way the communities can come into control of the interventions that can happen in their community is to make the resources available to them. And this will work. Yes, because is it of the scale that will change the entire environment? No, the answer is no. Probably this will complement in a much more practical way to bring alleviate suffering. And Mr. President, what he's doing now is to make sure that that intervention works. There's the inclusion both of the political class and also the economic class within the Niger Delta region, so that they are included in the scheme of things, that they have a different persuasion to ensure that sustaining production, increasing production, actually serves their interest more than looking at the overall big, let's share this money every month mentality that we have in the country. And I think this is why we are seeing this gradual recovery that we are seeing. Today, we have a line of sight around what goes wrong, where it is getting wrong, when activities can actually be brought in to contain them. So it's paying off. And we believe that we can sustain this so that we can have that pathway to the 2 million barrels per day by the end of the year. And thereafter, we'll now see what next can we do. Gas, as you may all know, is a transition fuel, is where the new money will come. chemicals largely come from gas, even though people are cracking crude to chemicals, but we know that chemical market will continue to be there. Gas will be made from chemical products. As we go in forward, we are seeing a lot of cars are now, the bodies are not metal anymore. So we know that this will grow. That's why we're very, very aggressive in ensuring that we supply gas into the market so that the power sector can continue to have a source of cheap feedstock, and also to have industries come up on the back of this. In today's time, we're actually supplying more than the market can take into the market. Only NNPC can do this because nobody wants to deal with the domestic market for the obvious reason. Infrastructure is expensive, customers are difficult, so nobody is going to put their money. Of course, upstream people will not put money to produce the gas when they are not sure that the midstream operator can pay them back. This is a challenge that we are dealing with, but that's why this today, our supplies into the domestic market is robust. We're planning for growth, and growth means that more midstream infrastructure pipelines and also processing plants that we have to put in place.
Also in that media chat, Mr. Kyari had promised that there are some infrastructure to pass on gas and make it even more available and affordable. You heard him there saying that gas is now available, but of course the issue of affordable comes next. But he says he would refuse to give timelines because you know that the NNPC has been giving some timelines, which has come back to haunt them. For instance, there was the promise of Port Harcourt Refinery, which was promised for September. And of course, I was privileged to be a part of that conversation. And that was one of the conversations coming up. And he did say, wow, they had that timeline and they were working towards it. Some unexpected mechanical issues cropped up, and he has promised not to give timeline anymore, not for the refineries, not for the gas infrastructure, which is ongoing. We saw some pictures right there at that event, you know. So he shared all of that, but it says he's being careful with giving timelines now, but promised that the refineries will work and the gas will also be in abundance in supply and affordable over time, you know, to the Nigerian public. So that was Mr. Kyari, the Chief CEO, Group CEO, beg your pardon, of NNPCL right there. So, and that's where we'll hand over back to the Sunrise Daily Studio. I'll be back at 1 p.m. for Business Incorporated. Ladies, all the way in East Africa. We'll give you the gist at 1 p.m. Want to find out what Laddie Williams is doing, why he's not in the studio, while you have to work with me alone. That'll be Business Incorporated, 1 p.m. 55 minutes of business is what we'll be doing then. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.